Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Table Talk, where Josh and I talk to wonderful people in the tabletop role playing community. And we have the privilege to be joined by Daniel. You can find his account at RedWormOfficial. You can see it right under him right there, and also at wormden.com. And because you are a red worm, I wanted to roll out the red carpet, I guess, with the Inferno background from ttrpgoverlay.com, and where you can get all of the fun things there. And now that we have all that stuff out of the way, welcome, Daniel. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, Josh, I know I'm pretty sure I introduced the Red Worm official account to you because your Twitter account is like the coolest concept for a Twitter account I think I've ever seen. It's one of the only things that actually my wife would be probably interested in when it comes to tabletop role-playing games. But I mean, I could explain it, but maybe that might be better if you explain what people would find if they come to your account.
I think mostly what you'd find on my account is conversations that I have with my son, mostly about Dungeons and Dragons. He's 5 years old. He's known as the Red Wyrmling, and he has some interesting viewpoints on Dungeons and Dragons. So it's always fun to hear what our conversations are. He's also an avid Star Wars fan and as of recently, a very large Lord of the Rings fan. So he just finished watching the trilogy, the extended edition trilogy. So he's excited about that. Quotes from LOTR come in almost every conversation we have now. So,
Josh, what do you think? What do you think about the parenting here? I feel like we know some stuff.
Oh, it sounds like he's an excellent parent from what I'm gathering here.
You said he's 5?
He's 5, yeah, that's correct.
And I feel like his pun skills. I mean, I think I'm decent at puns. It's like he's light years beyond me.
It baffles me when I hear, he loves jokes, and of course he'll hear me say a joke one time and then he'll repeat it 500 times, and he loves to do that. But he really likes wordplay, and it really just thrills him and excites him to be able to tell a joke. And he got his first joke book maybe 6 months ago and just loved it and just devoured every joke in there and laughed and told me every one of them. And so ever since then he's been really enjoying the wordplay.
How did you get him into D&D or tabletop RPGs or however you did it? Because that's like, I have a 6-year-old niece, and I was thinking of some ways to kind of like get her involved in that kind of thing. 5e or really any of the editions, like that's pretty heavy rules for an age category that is typically like Candyland and that kind of stuff, you know?
Well, we started when he was 2. Well, technically, we started before that because my wife and I played Dungeons and Dragons pretty much every day, and so he heard it from the time he was first born. He heard Dungeons and Dragons and kind of understood what it was. And so when he was 2, he said he wanted to make a character. So we rolled up a character. He wanted to make a very old character who was 18. So I think originally he was 15, but we made him be at least 18. And so he made it this night. It was Sir Tyson Takut. It was the name he came up with, and he just loved Tyson. And so I started telling him characters. We wrote up a whole character sheet in 5e. He didn't know any of it, man, of course. But we created it for him, and I just started telling him stories. So I'd tell him stories of Tyson, and Tyson had a squire named Gruff, and Tyson and Gruff would go on these adventures together. And he loved it. He'd ask for stories. He actually kind of fell more in love with Gruff, and Gruff was kind of the character he loved in the stories. I just tell him stories about their adventures. And then after maybe a half a year of doing that, bedtime stories and things of the sort, I started asking him what he thought Tyson and Gruff would do. And at that point, he just would tell me what they do. And then we'd go from there with the story. And then he was about maybe right at 8, turning 3 years old. And we started rolling dice to figure out what he wanted them to do was successful. And I just slowly introduced one rule at a time for the next maybe 6 months until he kind of had a decent grasp of it. At that point, COVID hit. And my best friends from home, which is Pennsylvania, and I started a game, and he sat on my lap for that first game, and he just loved it. He wanted more of it. And so the second session we played, he created a pixie paladin character that he wanted to play. I figured a pixie would be good for a 3-year-old at this time, so he could just do whatever he wanted to, and it wouldn't seem too out of character. And he played every session from then forth, and just loved it. He got into it. When that campaign came to an end, he created his new character, and we play pretty much every day, at least. It might be a 15-minute session. It might be a 2 or 3 hour session, depending on the day.
Yeah.
We play every day.
I think that's a great way to do it. It's just like a little bit at a time.
It wasn't overwhelming for him. It was very easy for him to learn the rules, and he still doesn't know them all. And if he doesn't know them, he just asks, and we need to look it up, or I know it, or something of the sort. But
just like all of us.
It's the same thing when I play.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Jake, is that how that works? He doesn't know. We look it up.
So, I was still fairly new to 5e at the time too. So, kind of introduced 5e with him and with my friends, and that campaign was really our first 5e campaign we played. So, definitely our first experience with it, and we all learned together.
Yeah. So okay. So that was your first 5e situation. So how long have you been playing?
Yeah, so I started when I was 8, 38 years ago. So it's been a long time. My brother bought the red box. Actually, we called it the red box, but it was just because the book inside was red. I think it was the Moldave box, the pink box, whatever one it was. He played with some friends, and I just basically devoured it. And soon after he bought that, he had the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook. And I just remember reading through the Dungeon Master's Guide when I was 8, trying to understand it. I was so confused, no idea what's going on. But I loved the idea of it. Love the little cartoons, and just I devoured every bit of it. And I think I was 10 when I first Dungeon Mastered. And I started running my brother through some campaigns. He ran me through a bunch of campaigns, modules he had bought or that came with the packs and stuff back then. But I played all through junior high and high school. And then when my wife and I, we really got into it together as a just one-on-one D&D, maybe in 2001. She'd played with me and my friends a lot, but we never just did a one-on-one campaign until that point. And we're still running that same campaign today.
Did you start at level 1? And
yeah, she started at level 1. Her and my best friend from home have played a one-shot, basically. And then she really liked the character, and so I took his character, made it an NPC, and we've been playing those characters ever since. So
you typically the DM, or do you guys kind of swap?
I'm always the DM. It's always the same campaign. Her character is the same character she's had the whole time. She doesn't have any interest in playing anybody else. And the characters have pretty much become family at this point. We've played them so long. She's playing a male character, and all of his friends are like family. They're related to us almost. We couldn't live without them. And one-on-one D&D is one of those things. It's just, it is so personal and it's so fast compared to regular D&D. And when you have a table of 5 or 6 or 8 players, or whatever, it is so slow. But I mean, she gets through a battle in no time because she's the main character. She's the only one really doing anything. So it is such a fast game. It is so personal. There's so much one-on-one discussion and role play together that it really brings a couple together. I highly recommend it with anyone who loves D&D to play with their spouse. It connects you together in ways we would never imagine. So
I've come close to getting, my wife's name is Kim, to be able to get her to be able to do it. And I don't know if it was when the UA came out or whenever, or maybe when the fairy became a race that you could play. She's always like, I think if ever I played, I would play a druid. And then when the fairy came out, she's like, I think I would play a fairy druid. I can run you through, Dragon of Icefire Peak or something if you want. Let's do this.
It's a great bonding experience, and then there's so much you explore together as a couple in D&D that you would never talk about in real life. Just like you don't talk about these things of like life and death on a daily basis. And so it's really interesting to see to get to know your partner in that manner. You wouldn't normally get to know them. Plus, it's great entertainment. I mean, it's so much more fun than watching TV together or doing anything else. So that's what we do.
I've always said, like, your D&D group is like, when I refer to them, I'll be like, look, like we've shed blood together, like we fought together, whatever, like some of us died and that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's definitely a different bond and a different experience. I've never thought of it in the sense of like a couple playing like that and like really diving into like the kind of, I don't know if psychology is the right word, but like that behind that and all the different like actual and important topics that could come up for a relationship. That's really interesting. I feel like that there could be an entire YouTube channel dedicated to that. I would watch it every week.
I know there is a couple here in Utah that have a like a one-on-one dually. It's called duels or something of the sort. I'll have to look it up and send it to you to let you know what it is. But that's their whole thing is just a husband-wife team that work together to create D&D games for themselves.
We've only ever had like really limited experience with the one-on-one games, but the few that we've done, like it's so interesting. It's such a different experience, and I feel like we have pages of notes on different like campaign ideas for one-on-one.
We have way too many ideas.
Yeah, we do.
Not enough time. That's always the way it feels like with us. So you mentioned it was a way you could get to know each other better. Has there ever been a moment where one of you looked at the other and just were like, I had no idea you thought that? Or like, is there anything you'd feel comfortable sharing or something just like jumped off the table to you?
I guess for me, it was more of the exploration of our own morality. So we had gotten married maybe we got married in 98. We started playing really in 2001. So we've been married a few years. But at that point, we really start to delve into the discussion, and D&D gets you into so many different subjects and thought process, like how does the world created, and how is that related to the way our world is created or anything of that sort. And so it really helps you delve into we delved into religious subjects, all sorts of different kinds of things that we discussed together and actually formed our own beliefs based on discussions that came out of D&D and then related to the real world. And so whether it's religion, whether it's mental health, whether it's work-life balance and things of that sort of what's important to us. And obviously in D&D, our characters are so epic. They're always doing these awesome things. And then we go to work and we come back from work and it seems kind of boring. So how do we capture that life and that spark of life in the same way that our characters do? And so that was one of the things that we really kind of just worked together and lived through our characters and how are we going to experience that together. I don't know if there's anything that really surprised me about my wife, or I probably surprised her more than she surprised me. But back when we started in 2001, lines and veils weren't really much of a thing. We didn't really discuss that. And we kind of got into some stuff that was like psychological D&D that was really too much. We played, Vecna was our main bad guy, and Vecna was really harassing her character mentally and like creating images and alternate worlds. And at this point, I kind of screw with reality so much in the game that she had no idea what was real or what wasn't as a player. So she wasn't even sure what was real. So we actually had to really kind of back out of that and make sure that we weren't crossing that line, because it got really kind of strange for the player as opposed to just for the characters. And so we ended up doing a lot of metagaming to fix that. But when you only have one player, it's pretty easy to just metagame together, create something new, and move on.
It really is an exercise in communication. So it's good that you're able to do that and make your adjustments.
It's interesting because, one-on-one D&D isn't very popular, but when I started playing, that's you didn't have that many friends, and so we just if one friend could get together with me, we play D&D, and so I played a lot of one-on-one D&D back in the day, and so it wasn't really strange, and I kind of realized that other people didn't seem to do that. My main group was only ever 2 people. It was me and my 2 buddies, so we never had the big 7 or 8 party groups very often, unless we had a special event going on or something.
Yeah, that's how it was for me. I learned with my mom and my stepdad, and because we only had 2 other people, the players would each play 2 characters. Dungeon
matching for a single character is a lot more challenging. If there's only 1 character there and they're only playing, the player's only playing 1, it makes it really challenging to set a challenge for them. And if they're a rogue, how are they healing themselves, or how are they taking down the enemy? In 5e, it's a little more balanced than it used to be, but my wife and I played a lot of 3e, and her character started, actually I think in 2nd edition, but most of it was in 3e, and it was, there wasn't a whole lot of balance there. So she ended up multi-classing a lot as she went up in levels, just so she could have a variety of skills.
You mentioned that she played the same character, always plays like the same character. What class is that?
His name is Lorne, and he started out as a rogue. He was 15 when he started in the game. He multi-classed into wizard and paladin both in 3rd edition eventually, and he became a knight, so he was known as the Rogue Knight. It was a fun character. Still is. We still play him, and we actually played him today at lunchtime. So I mean, we play pretty much every day as well, part of that adventure. And it's been going on for 20-some years. And so we moved through 3rd edition. We went all the way up through epic levels, and eventually he became a deity. And then eventually it's just moved on from there. And it really taught me that the story doesn't ever have to end. They just have new creations for the story. But it does get kind of challenging to continue to challenge her character with the power levels that he has. Several times we've had to bring him back down to almost like a 1st level character and start again in a new world or a new place where he didn't have access to the powers he once had, type of thing, just to make it fun again.
It's like a new Zelda game, where you're still the hero of time.
Link, how do you only have 3 hearts again?
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like you played a lot of editions. Which one if you have a favorite, which one would you say is your favorite?
I love third edition. I just think it's so much fun. There's so much to it that it's great. But having taught my son fifth edition and seeing how customizable it is and how easy it is to jump in and just get playing. I run some games for some homeschool kids as well. My son's homeschooled, and so we homeschool some other kids that are homeschooled in our group. We run some games for them, and they jump right in. I mean, they're 6, 7, 8 years old, and they can jump right in and play the game. And that doesn't happen in third edition. So I love that accessibility to the game, and I really found it fun. So I'm kind of torn between third and fifth right now.
That's definitely the biggest strength of fifth. Long time ago, I made a survey, 4 or 5 questions, just kind of figure out what interested people, and it was for a group of friends that I was going to play a one shot with. None of them have ever played the game before, and based on that survey, I made a character for them. When I showed them the character sheet, they were all like, "Oh yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to play," and we were able to get through a one shot like no problem at all. Like it's definitely way more approachable than any of the other editions.
Yeah, we'll have a new kid show up at the homeschool D&D group, and they jump right in. They don't have to learn the rules. We just make them a quick character, and they jump right in and start playing. It's that much fun. We'll kind of go through the details later as to what they can do and add that in, and I kind of help them, guide them as they were playing. But at the same point, it's really easy to jump right in and just play the game as opposed to having to spend time figuring out how to play the game.
I've never played third edition before, but I have this weird interest and infatuation with the system and the game and everything about how like it is so complicated and it is so specific, and you have all of these like I have to take this feat because it's a prerequisite for this one, and then I made this decision at the beginning and now it ruined my character. Like I love that level of depth. I feel like a lot of people, especially now, a lot of people hate that kind of stuff, but I'm really itching to play a 3 or 3.5 game.
I love the addition. I love the customizability of your character with the feats. There's so many different feats you can take, and it's not like this you have to wait till 4th level to get this feat type thing, and then you don't get any more till the next 8th level, whatever. They're accessible. You can use them, and they can really make your character have a calling card type thing. Oh, this is my place. I can jump in here and great cleave or whatever, and use that feat, and it's just so much fun to be able to do that. But I've also played thousands and thousands of hours of 3rd edition, so I mean that's the one I know the best. So I mean, because my wife and I played that for so long, that's what we use for most of the character. I mean, I know it. It's inside and out, and that game is something I'm very comfortable with. Where 5e is, I've played a lot in the last 2.5 years, I guess, with my son, teaching him the rules, and so I'm getting comfortable with it. But it still has some things that are a little bit odd to me.
I always mix the rules up from different editions. I'm just like, wait, no, that was the last table talk we did. I'm currently in our Sunday night game. I'm playing an elf. They have their trance, and I mixed that trance rule up with Star Wars Saga Edition, the Jedi trance rule, and I was like, I'm still aware of things. Just because I'm in a trance doesn't. No, that's we played almost 2 years of this game, and that's just how we use it for that game because we messed that up in the beginning, or I messed that up in the beginning.
I didn't find out until a few weeks ago when we had that other table talk with
exactly
with and Sleeps, but might as well leave it in. I think it's more fun that way, but. It is funny how it's like the more you play and the more you branch out, the more those other rules kind of blend in. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because if you bring something in from another edition, it's not because you didn't like it. It's
exactly
because you enjoyed it. So it's just enhancing your current game. Yeah,
I have quite a bit of the rules from 3rd edition in our 5e games. I mean, I like weapon specialization. I think it's something that a fighter should be able to do. And in 5e, that's just not there. So I like that. I don't really like the attunement rules a whole lot in 5e. I think it's kind of limiting what a DM wants to do. So none of my magic items ever require attunement. So I do have slots, like you've only got 2 rings. Like in 3rd edition, you can only wear 2 rings, and you can wear 1 hat, and you can wear 1 belt, but you can't. I don't have an attunement situation. So there's a lot of things I've brought in from 3rd edition and from 2nd and 1st edition as well that I really enjoy in 5e. But pretty much still most of our 5e rules are the same as written.
It always forms a good spot to start, and then you just make it work for whatever you and your friends want to do. It's really pretty simple. So when you're bringing say a new kid comes to the table, what's the character creation process like? Do you have like some pre-mades ready? Do you kind of is it just like a handful of questions like Josh's survey?
So we had one that came in the middle of a game, and I said, what kind of character do I play? You know, sneaky or tough or magical? And they said, sneaky. And I said, okay, you're a rogue. You got to come up with a name. And they came up with a name, and we started playing. And so that was it. We rolled up the stats later after the game so they could play them more technically the next time, but they just jumped right in with their character. And during the game, I asked them to describe themselves and to the rest of the party when they showed up and things of that sort. And that kind of filled out their physical description and everything they wanted to be, even their race at that point, because I didn't even know what race they were until they described themselves as an elf. And then in that case, the kid had never come back to the tabletop games that we play, so we didn't actually have to make up anymore. But another kid came in and did the same thing, and they're there all the time. So it all depends on the kid and what they want and what they want to do. But we don't take any time to do character creation from my perspective. I think when they first started, there's another dungeon master that's involved as well. When they first started, they created all their characters individually, and then he'll let them watch a session, and then they make their character at the end what they want to play. But I think it's just fun to jump right in.
So that might be expecting a lot of the attention span.
Yeah.
If you're not, I mean, it's one thing to be interested and to also be participating.
I was only homeschooled for a couple of years, but like my memories of homeschool groups are not like, I never remember being anything like fun or anything like that. But if anything like that was going on, I would have been all about it. I probably wouldn't have been allowed to play in it, but I would have been all about it. I definitely would have showed back up.
The kids there, we've taken a break this summer, and every time I see them, they're like, "We want to play D&D again. When are we gonna play D&D?" And they're all excited about coming back. So at the end of the month here, we're getting back into it. So
could run like a summer camp or something like that. It feels like an unofficial, the Red Worm official, unofficial D&D camp for kids.
When I was a kid back home in Pennsylvania, we had a D&D camp in my local university in the town I lived in. And I didn't ever go to it. I kind of wanted to. I remembered it being there and going to it, but I was a little young. The age group was 4 or 5 years older than me, and so that most of the kids were. But I remember it was pretty big for a short time, and then I'm sure it was the satanic panic that kind of pushed everything away from it and changed that up. So
yeah, that was my biggest barrier of entry for the game. But I didn't start playing until I was in my early 20s. I think I was 20 when I started playing.
Yeah, because I do remember asking, I was like, "You turned 21 yet? Because we have beer here." It's like making sure we were going to do something we weren't supposed to.
I was either just 21 or it was like right before I turned 21.
Yeah, it was like right around there.
Yeah, I experienced the satanic panic a little bit more from my friends than me. I mean, they weren't allowed to play type thing. I started a game with a couple close friends, and their parents found out what we were doing, and they cut it off. And their church actually then had some sermons about D&D and things of the sort that were focused on for them and me and such. And so
I remember having youth group meetings about Harry Potter and the dangers of all that.
For so many reasons, I should have been in that same camp, but my parents were just like, "No, this isn't real."
Yeah, that's how
that simple for them. So I was like, "All right, this is great."
And the funny thing to me about it all is that I'm a Christian, and D&D is actually what brought me to Christianity. So I didn't grow up really much of a Christian, but it was the discussions with my wife and the thoughts about what a deity would do in the game. Once our character got to a certain level, I started playing the deities out. And when you're playing out a deity, you're like, how would they normally act? How would a god act? And then this isn't like something I'd want to worship. So it kind of led me to really explore that aspect of my life and brought me towards research and being open to Christianity. So for me, it's actually funny that everyone else was worried about it, and it's what brought me to becoming a Christian. So it's kind of amusing.
I love that so much. You have no idea. So much. You have no idea. Anytime someone gets adamant about something and I just believe they're wrong, it gets flipped on their head. That I've never heard that before, and I love that. I think I would be completely negligent in this interview if I didn't read a few of the plot hooks, a few tips and things. And now these all come from your son, is that correct?
Yeah, so the plot hooks all come from our games together. So after the game, I'll say, what was the plot hook there? And we talk about it, and we come up with it together. When I first started the tips, I think it was about 1.5 years ago, I did a list of Dungeon Master and player tips and just thought, what would you tell a dungeon master? I wanted to hear what a 4-year-old at the time would want to say. And it was some fun stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. And so I just kept asking him if he had any advice or when we go to our homeschool D&D, what would you tell the other kids there? How should they play the game, or what should they do, or different tips? So he's got a bunch of tips for both dungeon masters and players.
The most recent plot hook, you have the coin of yonder death here.
This is a coin he made up maybe a year ago. It's been a while. This is a coin that if your character gets it, they have to give it away within an hour or they die.
It's like hot potato.
It's like hot potato. And then that person has to give it away within the next hour, they die. And so it basically has to keep going or else somebody's going to end up dead. And so this happened in my game. My character had found this like a year ago, and then just in our game, it resurfaced. So I had to find a way to get rid of it quick. And so there's a lot of creative ways. How do you get rid of this coin without actually killing somebody? Or do you want to find someone that's evil enough that you can kill them?
That's all right.
Yeah.
Just leave it with that. All right, so if your character gave it to my character, could my character then give it back to your character?
If I take it, or if you could force me to take it in some way, like if you flipped it to me or whatever, and I'd catch it, and then I'd have to give it back to you. But if I didn't,
so we
catch
could just
it,
trade off.
Yeah, you can just trade off. So so that's what we did is we pass it back and forth. My character's name is Redcoat. So he's a British naval officer that was stationed in the Americas before the war and was friends with George Washington. So that was what my son wanted me to play. And so he's my main character. And now he's friends with George Washington and Vecna and a whole bunch of other characters that have come into the game over the years.
Wow.
So we were just passing back with me and George Washington and Vecna and Redbones the Lich and Mimi the Teenage Mimic. We just keep passing it back and forth so nobody died.
A little interesting when someone wants to take a nap.
Yeah, it was.
You just put it in your hand.
We didn't really get into that too much. We tried to find someone else.
If I gave it to a ghost, would it work? Would I be able to? Would that be considered passing it off?
Yeah. So I asked my son about what happens with undead because Vecna's in our party, and so if I give it to Vecna, is he going to die? And he said, "Well, Vecna can die. You can kill Vecna. So you can kill a ghost." So that was his answer to that was that you could kill anything. So
I love it.
Now, do you have to actively take possession of it, or could you like put pocket?
So you can pickpocket it. There we go. Put it into someone's pocket, but they have to know they've got it. So you can't sneak it onto somebody, according to him. Now, so I don't know how that mechanic works in the game, but you can't just sneak it onto someone and then they just die an hour later. So they have to know they have it.
Otherwise, it still technically belongs to that person.
Exactly.
I'm so interested in this like colonial, pre-revolutionary 5e America like that.
Yeah, so
with Vecna and Mimi was it
the
yeah.
So she's from a place called the Trapfell, which is a demi-plane of where the mimics all come from that he
Where
created.
the traps hang out. Okay.
The traps hang out in the Trapfell. Yeah, it started. It's probably been more than a year now. Yeah, probably a year or so. We were getting ready for 4th of July, so we were watching the colonial stuff, and there was a cartoon called Liberty's Kids, I believe is what the cartoon was, maybe from the 90s, that he got really into the Revolutionary War. So everything was George Washington, everything was Ben Franklin, and just loved it. And so he created this character for me to play, and all the characters I play are ones he creates. So I don't ever create my own anymore. I just let him create, because his are so much more fun. I just play a wizard every time. And he wants to play, he wants me to play dinosaur riding gnome ranger or something else, but we always come back to Redcoat, but it's a lot of fun.
The latest tip that you posted might have been yesterday, the day before, something like that. DM tip from a 5-year-old: tell your players to make characters that like to do things.
Very much so.
That's like my whole premise for playing characters. I want to push the button. I want to see what it does, and if there's a trap, then we have a trap, and we're having fun with the trap.
We have like 20-minute videos that could be summed up in that sentence.
Yes.
We have at least
He gets
one.
it. He gets it.
So that tip came from him being mad because my character didn't want to do the plot hook he created for me. So recently he's watched Lord of the Rings, so we've watched all 3 of the movies, and he wants to take all of my characters to Middle Earth. So no matter who I create, you see a portal in front of you. Do you go through it? And I'm like, no, I don't go through it. I don't want to go to Middle Earth. And so he's like, you don't know it goes to Middle Earth. I said, I still wouldn't go through the portal. And so he's all mad because I would not go through the portal to Middle Earth. He eventually tricked me into going through it. So in this case, he was just mad. And so that was his tip, do things. You need to do things. And it should have said probably do things that your dungeon master wants you to do, but he didn't finish that part. So that's the tip comes from that.
Oh, I understood exactly what he was saying. I think it was perfect. Even just this one, my thing says it was 8 hours ago. Conversations with the 5-year-old DM. 5-year-old DM. How long till Halloween? You. About 2 months. Your son. Have the D&D people released the Beholder Yard inflatable yet? You. Not yet. Your son.
Wow.
They've had a whole year. That was the response. They've had a whole year. Thank you.
So last year he wanted a D&D Beholder Yard inflatable in our yard, and of course they didn't have any. So he told me to ask the D&D people, which is Wizards of the Coast, to make one. And so they're tagged in that post.
Yeah.
And, they were tagged in the one a year ago too, so they've had a chance, and they haven't come up with it yet. So
They really dropped the beholder on that one.
no doubt.
Womp womp. I do believe you are my favorite Twitter account.
Well, thank you.
So it's just chock full of gems everywhere.
Anytime I see one of the pictures with whatever from the 5-year-old DM, you use the same style for it. And every time I see that pop up on my feed, I'm like, this is going to make me smile. And it does. It's like,
Branding at its best.
And in a time of like Twitter being a hellscape, regardless of who you follow, it's nice to count on posts that are going to make you happy.
I kind of found my niche. I didn't really expect it to be that way. I originally came into Twitter. I'd written a couple of Dungeons and Dragons rap songs that I wanted to promote and put them out there. And I didn't really find my niche until I started just talking about my kid and our games together and stuff. And then I really found that I really like doing this, and that wholesome aspect of just making Twitter a little bit of a better place and making people smile really makes us both happy. My son loves it too. He gets excited. What do the Twitter people do today? And wants to hear people say anything about his advice or his plot hooks or anything like that. So he gets into it too.
It's spot on. I mean, one of the other recent plot hooks. A political debate in the Senate that is so boring, everyone is driven to violence, and battle begins.
that one comes from an episode of Clone Wars. It was Padme was in the Clone Wars, and the whole episode was just about the Senate and them debating whether they should fund the war or not. And he was so bored, so he just really got mad about it. And so that one was inspired from that. And then he wanted battle. He wants lightsabers and gun fights and such. So he doesn't really get into the politics. Every one of his plot hooks and everything he does is inspired from real life. So it's just brought in from things he experiences, real life, as in Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. But they're inspired from that. He sees the things he likes in life, whether it's his friends or whether it's going on a hike or whatever it might be, and he puts that into his game. So that's really, we all do the same thing for the most part.
Of course.
I was checking out your website this morning, and I texted Jake. I was like, "Did you know he makes music?" And I was like, "Cause I thought it was just the 5-year-old DM stuff." And then I started looking at that. That was pretty fun. Did you make all those beats yourself? Like, did they come from the plane of Trap where the mimics?
I made the first rap I wrote for one of my friend's birthdays. He's one of my old D&D players, and I made him a song. I'd always enjoyed rap songs and such, but I made him a song. It's not one of the ones I've ever released because it's got a lot of inside jokes in it and everything of the sort, but I had fun with it. So I said, I'll make another one. So then I made the Shadowrun song. I had a good video idea for it, and so I made a video and made a song, and then I made the Life of the Party, which is the life of a cleric in a party and how frustrating it can be.
I'm a cleric. I'm a priest. Something the deceased. I revive the deceased. Give life. That's what it was.
Life of the party. It's right there. I love it.
So I've probably written 20 or 30 different rap songs, and I've recorded a few, but I just haven't ever released the rest of them. It's just something, and I don't know that I'm good enough to enjoy releasing them all the time. And so they're fun, but they're not everything. So I plan to release more at some point. Maybe when I find someone I can have mix them or do, I'm not an audio engineer, and putting them all together is kind of a challenge for me. So I just like to write the lyrics and rap them. They're fun. For a while, I did some cheesy raps for people for their characters. If you ever look for cheesy rap in my Twitter, you'll find some cheesy raps where I just made songs for people's characters. A handful of bars.
It doesn't go into the computer right now.
And they're a lot of fun. It's just 8 bars about someone's character that they tell me some information, and I make a quick wrap up and put it up for them. And those are fun because it doesn't require any production or anything. It's just real quick. It's not like I'm trying to make a song and release it on Spotify or anything and go through that. So
Well, it makes sense where all the wordplay comes from now. I mean,
Yeah, he's actually really a good little rapper too. So he likes to just throw put
oh,
words together and make them rhyme. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. But he'll just loves rhyming now as well. So we recently did a submission for the one-page dungeon contest. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not. But my son submitted a one-page dungeon, which is just basically a map and a few words out there on it, and then one page, and it's supposed to be a dungeon. And on the bottom, he has all these traps that are listed out. His was filled with traps, and they all kind of rhymed. And so it was a lot of fun to see him come up with these different rhyming traps. And he asked, well, what rhymes with this word? And so we could go through all the different words that we could come up with that rhyme, and he'd pick one that would fit. And so it was a lot of fun to see him do that.
That was a big thing when I was in high school. Like me and a couple of my friends would always me and one of my friends would always be either I'm beatboxing, he's freestyling, and then we switch, or whatever. Like I always dabbled in music, but my friends were like in deep, and I think that's still true because Jake, you maybe not so much anymore, but you used to be like pretty deep with music.
yeah, and
And Evan currently
really
is. So we recorded a bunch of stuff, but I very very rarely let that see the light of day. There's one that I did that I'm sure you'll hear it if you're watching this. You'll probably hear it at the end of this video.
Probably will put that at the end.
Does, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he made a rap about our. I don't know if that's what they call it these days, Josh. What would you call what you did? Freestyling?
Yeah, it was mostly a freestyle, but that was just about our channel.
Yep. We just were getting started a month or two in, nothing crazy, and I think it's good. I do, but I also have no skill in that regard. So take that for what it's worth.
I just don't share my stuff for a reason. And that's a whole other conversation that we don't have time to unpack here.
It's a different world, and it's definitely got its own critiques, I guess you'd say. People get real picky about their music and what they like and such. So I had fun making them. That's kind of why I made the songs I made. And like I said, I'll probably release some more at some point, but I don't know when that'll be.
Whenever it is, I can't wait to hear what you put out next.
Well, I know our time is getting short. We got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you'd like to say or share or let people know about your account?
We're working on some products. We've been working on the Red Wyrmling's Guide to Everything for about a year now. And so this is his book of everything: magic items, feeds, subclasses, and he's done his part. He's created everything, and so I'm in the process of editing it and figuring out how to put it out there. He's got a beholder manual that we've written, and that's about 80% done. I'd hoped to release it in the spring here, but I didn't get to it, and life got kind of busy, so we're working on that. The beholder manual is just basically his entire lore of beholders. He loves them.
Gosh,
and
yes.
He thinks they're a fun creature, and he's created all kinds of new beholder types and aspects and eye rays, and he has lore about beholders and things of that sort. Subclasses that you can get to become a beholder hunter and things of that sort. So it's a lot of fun, and so that'll be on DM's Guild because beholders copyright from D&D. So
okay. Oh yeah, I guess you couldn't kickstart that, or
you could all call them Wazowskis.
You can call them whatever. You can call them something different and change them up a little bit, but we'll just release it on DM's Guild. And the guide to everything, I don't know if that's going to be on DM's Guild or if we'll do that somewhere else on Kickstarter or do something else to make a book. But that's kind of the long-term one. I kind of wanted to. We started that when he was still the 4-year-old DM, and so that was kind of the goal to get out while he was still 4 because it was so much fun stuff. But he's added so much to it since then, and it just keeps getting bigger. So I don't know if it'll ever get really finished, but we'll release something at some point. But the beholder manual will probably be the first one. And then we've got we have a plot hook book we're working on as well for just all of his plot hooks and kind of giving a little more in-depth stuff to his plot hooks of what happens in his opinion of that plot hook and different things of that sort. So that one's coming out sometime soon too. So that's what we're working on.
If you're watching this video, go to Twitter at Redworm Official. This is where you will learn all of the information about when all of these wonderful products, advice, plot hooks, creativity. You got to go there. Go follow the Redworm Official right now. You have permission to pause the video if you need permission to do that. It's nice to get permission, Josh.
You no longer have permission. You have permission from Jake, but not permission from me. Don't pause.
What are you gonna do, viewers? What are you gonna do? Well, Daniel, it was an absolute pleasure to sit down with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on our channel and talk about just the wonderful account and story you have.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys and love being here.
Daniel, it was great chatting with you. It was nice to actually meet you and put a face behind the Twitter account and get some more context into everything going on there. And it's cooler than I thought it was going to be.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you so much for watching, and maybe if you watch to the end screen, you'll see Josh's fun stuff. Yeah, have fun.
Listen, got something to say. Gonna talk about some tabletop things, get some stuff off my mind. Just bear with me, all right? J&J, there's something I gotta say. You could watch him every week. New videos Wednesday, talking tabletop, community pop. All the GMs send us DMs so that we could talk shop. Got the how-tos, the playthroughs, everything on YouTube. You know I got a view, and they even got a Twitch too. Oh man. So you could like, comment, subscribe to the channel, watch the group discussions and listen to the panel. Got the class intros in Dungeons and Dragons. Fight night winners claim the rights and start the bragging. I spy a peak Thursday night of every week. So pick your spells, pick your feats, favorite backgrounds, athlete. That's a joke. You gotta watch the videos. Doobly-doo, links to coffee for you. It's true that we do all the things that we do, and the J is for Josh, but the J is for Jake. For goodness sake, play that Dungeons and Drake. Oh man, I just hope that you guys know that this isn't serious. This is me just having some fun, and you know, maybe we'll use it in a video, maybe we won't. But links in the doobly-doo. Follow us, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want us to do more silly things like this, then you just let me know in the comments. So everybody have a great night. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on all those links in the doobly-doo, and stay safe. Have fun in your games.